I was there when System76 first announced that they were going to make their own desktop environment. I was there when the naysayers said, that's not gonna happen, you can't build a new desktop environment from scratch, that's way too much work. Why do you think everybody forks an existing environment? You can't just build a desktop environment. I was there when Alpha 1 came out, and yes, it was buggy, yes, it was an alpha, but it was already in a pretty good state. And I followed along with the project, reporting a lot of bugs. If you've seen my Cosmic streams, you would see there were quite a number of bug reports that I've personally written, many of which have been dealt with, some of which do remain open, and we'll get to that in just a bit. I was there when the naysayers said it would never catch up, it couldn't deal with accessibility, we can't deal with accessibility on our desktop, so obviously they can't deal with it. I was there when the Cosmic Beta came out, and again, it was in a really good state. Yes, it still had a lot of problems, and yes, it wasn't perfect, but it was really coming along. And whilst I don't run Cosmic as my daily driver desktop right now, I am still using Niri, I too am here when Cosmic Desktop Stable finally came out. And before we get to that, let's look at this letter from the founder and CEO of System76, Carl Rochelle. Pop! OS 2404 LTS with Cosmic Desktop Environment Epoch 1. Epoch is just the name they are using for each of their releases. If you're ambitious enough, or maybe just crazy enough, there eventually comes a time when you realize you've reached the limits of current potential and you must create something completely new if you're to go further. This is a really nice way to say it. I've spoken to Carl many times. Carl is very nice, and this is marketing material. Speak with someone like, Jeremy Soller, and you're going to find the actual opinions of System76 people about GNOME. They felt like GNOME was way too limiting. They were making a lot of changes which they did not agree with. PopShell was breaking way too often. Trying to build your entire environment through a plugin system was just not going to happen. And that's kind of the reason why Cosmic exists in the first place. This year, System76 turned 20. For 20 years, we have shipped Linux computers. For 7 years, we've built the Pop! OS Linux distribution. 3 years ago, it became clear we had reached the limit of our current potential, and we had to create something new. Today, we break through the limit with the release of Pop! OS 2404 LTS with the Cosmic Desktop Environment. Now, I'm running it on Arch Linux, but it is packaged on Fedora and a bunch of other things. If you want the first-party experience, obviously go and install Pop! OS 2404 LTS, and you will go and get that. Today is special, not only in that it is the culmination of over 3 years of work, but even more so in that System76 has built a complete desktop environment for the open source community. We are proud of this contribution to the open source ecosystem. Cosmic is built on the ethos that the best open source projects enable people to not only use them, but to build with them. Cosmic is modular and composable. It's the flagship experience for Pop! OS in its own way and can be adapted by anyone that wants to build their own unique user experience for Linux. Thank you for your patience while we built Cosmic. We know it's been a long ride and appreciate you taking it with us. Pop! OS 2404 LTS doesn't feel like moving forward 3 years, it feels like leaping forward a decade. This day marks the foundation for our next 20 years and the first of what will be many rapid innovations. Thank you to the System76 customers. Cosmic is entirely funded by System76 hardware sales. Not only are you getting the best Linux hardware on the planet, you're investing in the future of the Linux desktop that we all love. I hope you love what we built for you. Now go out there and create. Push the limits, make incredible things, and have fun doing it. This is a great marketing piece. This has got all of the marketing buzzwords in it, but let's actually have a look at what Cosmic actually is. One thing before that, if you are a Pop! OS user still sitting on 2204 LTS, you don't have to do a full reinstall. You can go and run this command right here and do an upgrade to 2404. With that out of the way, this right here is the Cosmic Desktop. Now, I've customized it a little bit. It's gonna look different depending on whether you're using it on Pop! OS or something clean, or you've customized it. The main difference you're gonna see is down with the bar, but it depends what you're doing. Now, before we go any further than that, there is also, if anyone likes them, there is desktop icons. Now, I'm not personally a fan of them, but they are here and they're all customizable and all that good stuff. So if you are a desktop icon enjoyer, here's one of the few environments that actually provides them. Now, Cosmic's primary selling point is being both a floating and tiling environment, but not compromising on one or the other. Not saying, oh, well, floating's the main experience, and it kind of has, like, window snapping like KDE does, or, well, some other environments just don't even have that. This provides both as a first-party experience and tries to provide a way where it feels comfortable to use both of them. So right now we are in the floating mode, and floating works as you'd expect. Obviously, you can grab the bar up here, or you can, like, grab the side and do, like, a resize if you want. Or if you prefer, like I do, I usually just use the super key so we can click anywhere. We can drag it around. We can resize, all the good stuff. And there's, like, you know, buttons up here and, you know, stuff you'd normally expect to see. And even a minimize if that's a thing you tend to want. But that's not the interesting part. Oh, there's also edge snapping as well if that's a thing you want to do. The interesting part is we can then take this, and then if I press Super Y, which I believe is still the default key, now we go into the tiling mode. And from here, I'm going to go and open up this so you can actually see the difference between the windows. From here, we can either go and use our mouse to move windows around, and this takes us into, like, the swapping mode. Or, if you prefer, you can also use key bindings for it, because it is a tiling experience. So both of those things should be there. And not just that, we can also do a window swap as well. I can drag this here, takes us into the swap mode, and that swaps them around. Now, obviously, with two windows, it's not as clear what is happening here. So if we do this, hold down Super X, drag the window, and now it swaps those, keeping the layout the same. If we are just dragging the window, that can modify the actual layout. Super X for retaining the layout, or just Super if you want to drag it around. And it's the same with window focus as well. I can go and drag my mouse to one of these windows and we get focus, or I can use Super and then either Vim keys, or I believe arrow keys are also bound by default as well, and change focus like that. But what makes this interesting is a lot of these bindings don't just work in tiling or in floating. There is a lot of overlap with them. So I can obviously go and use my mouse and change window focus like this, or I can actually do it with a key binding. And it is going to go and warp the cursor over to those windows as well. And I don't have to just say, I want to use only floating, or I just want to use tiling. I can mix and match them if I want to. So right now, my monitor off to the side here, that is tiling. I can say this workspace here is floating, and then this one here is tiling, and then anytime I spawn a window here, it's going to be tiled. On here, they're going to remain floating, and you can do that as much as you want. The other nice thing about that is when you do make a workspace tiling or floating, that is actually going to be remembered between boots. So this, until I change it back to being a floating environment, is going to remain tiling. And when a workspace is blank, if you're unsure if something is floating or tiling, they do provide this little widget down here, which is going to indicate what it is, and that widget also lets you go and customize the behavior you want to have. Obviously, you don't have to use that. All of this is open for customization. And on the note of workspaces, if we go and press Super W, I can actually go and pin a workspace. So by default, it is going to work like GNOME does and generate new workspaces as you need them. Personally, I am not a fan of that, so being able to go and pin them and say, I want this workspace to always exist, is a nice middle ground to have. Now, I know there was a discussion about workspace renaming at some point. It seems like, unless it's not clear how you would use that this was never actually implemented. Just for a moment, let's go back to tiling. One thing I haven't shown you is if I go and drag this window, firstly, it's a little bit awkward to go and reposition where things are. I do kind of wish they got rid of these animations and then instead used like a highlight system. I think that would be a lot less jarring than, you know, windows constantly teleporting around. But if I drag a window into the middle of another one, again, this is a thing where there isn't actually a marker for it, but when you know, drag it into the middle of a window, Sometimes it also breaks. Again, another reason why there should be a marker. You see this whole stack Windows thing. I did not actually mean to make that stack, so I'm going to try that again. Stack Windows thing. This creates a Windows stack. This creates a tabbing environment of windows. And these windows also act with the same hotkeys as, going and changing focus. So if I go and do Super H, that is going to go and focus to the left. And that doesn't focus to this window here. It takes focus of the tab to the left. If I then go and focus to the left again, now it moves out. And this works the same way with moving windows around as well. So if I go and do Super Shift H, that is going to move the window out of the tab group, and then going back into that, it moves it into the tab group. So what you're seeing is a lot of these sort of, reuse bindings in ways where contextually they make sense to be the same binding. So rather than having binding layers to do functionality that could be on the same key, it just uses the same key. This, at least with the key bindings, is generally working fine. Again, as you saw with the whole window dragging, it can get a little bit awkward with things teleporting around. On the note of animations and teleporting, one other thing I hope they kind of fix is going in and out of the tiling system. This just looks really buggy. Like, the window is taking up the entire screen and then, stretches back. This is clearly not rendering like it should. I don't know if you would want to do a fade in or something else, but the way they are currently handling this, it really feels kind of alpha still. Also, like most other tiling systems, if I want to have everything be tiling and then just have this window be floating above things, that obviously can be done as well. Now, it does limit kind of how it works. So if I go and put that there, it puts it over the window, which is not really what you would want in this environment. They probably should get rid of the whole corner, what do you call it, splitting? I don't know what the term is. It doesn't work properly with a tiling window in floating mode. But besides that, for the most part, it just kind of works mostly how you'd expect. Now, outside of the windowing behavior, like every other desktop environment, Cosmic provides its own suite of applications. Now, I don't tend to use these because, look, I have the applications that I like to use, and that's what I tend to stick with. But there is a terminal, there's a media player, there's a text editor. I think I have that one installed. Yeah, we have that one installed. There is a software store if you don't like installing things from the terminal. But for me, when I go between environments, I keep my applications. I keep Alacrity. I keep MPV. I keep my browser. They're not making a browser. Just, they've specifically said they're not making a browser. That's a lot of work. But for me, I feel like a lot of the making tools for every environment is kind of a waste. But the tools they do have are totally functional tools. Is this a bad terminal? No. Is it the greatest terminal we'll ever use? Also no. It's kind of just a very solid desktop environment terminal. Same with the media player, same with the store. They're all just very solid desktop environment tools. Now, you might have noticed me opening the launcher every so often. So, like a lot of other environments, the launcher key is set to just pressing super. And also then any of my bindings are also on pressing super and then some other key. So sometimes you will see this open. If you don't want to see the launcher and you want to use your own launcher, you can go and disable the launcher. That is an option. One thing that you can do besides just, launching things with this is if we press the question mark, this takes us into the query mode. So I can do things like a file search or a calculator, or I can go do a web search with this. All of these are nice little things to do. They're not things I tend to use because, again, I have my own tools that I tend to use. I have my own launcher built on Toffee and all of my custom stuff that I just drag around between environments. But in regards to a desktop environment launcher, the Cosmic Launcher is basically as good as you could want one to be. If you don't like a launcher and prefer to see a list of all your applications, that is also a thing you can use as well. There is this like pop-up thing, I think it's on Super A by default, and it's going to list out whatever you have installed. Now, obviously, being a graphical launcher, it's going to be focusing on things that have a .desktop file. So if you have anything that doesn't have a .desktop file you want to run, that's going to be a problem from opening it here. But we do have folders, we do have custom folders and all that stuff. I never look at this. It's not really my way to do things. I usually launch things from a launcher that just runs the binary name. But I know this is something that desktop environment people tend to like. Speaking of tend to like, of course, we also have a graphical settings menu. I'm going to go out of tiling mode and we'll just make this bigger. Actually, I'll just go full screen. Why not? So this has basically all of the general settings you would expect to see. It is still very much a work in progress. There's still areas where well, there are bugs, like, for example, this one, where the text overflows. I believe I reported this one, I want to say at least a year ago now. There are things like that which have still been around for a while. We'll talk more about bugs in just a bit. But from here, we have, obviously, our accessibility settings. Get rid of that one. Accessibility settings, there is a screen reader as well. If you like a screen reader, there is a magnifier, which I believe works well nowadays. It used to be quite buggy. In the past, it kind of crashed the environment. Nowadays, pretty good. You're not going to see this, but there are color... Actually, you're going to see that one. There is the high contrast mode, but there's also these inverts. Now, that doesn't show up on the footage because of the way they're handling the invert, but I can guarantee you that right now my screen is inverted. Along with this, there are also color filters like grayscale, but also for various types of color blindness as well. One thing I would like to see with this, and I did report this a long time ago, is have the ability to set the intensity of that filter. That's not something you can do right now. It is just either on or off. And a really big one, because this is very annoying to set, is play stereo audio as mono. You can do this with Pipewire. It's just a pain in the ass to get set up, and just having a thing here that does it, very nice to see. Obviously, you have Bluetooth if your device has Bluetooth. I don't. There is your network settings as well, but here is our desktop settings. So desktop settings, obviously we have our wallpaper. I'm just running space because cosmic, but the appearance is where we get into theming. Now, right now, the theming is still fairly limited. You have your base dark and your base light theme. You can change some colors around. You can change the style. So right now I've got it set to square. I could set it to round and then things are rounded, or sorry, that's slightly round and then there's round. I would like this to be a slider instead of just 3 settings, because maybe I want to be, maybe I want to have a little more rounded than square, but I don't want slightly round, and I definitely don't want very round. Same with the compact, comfortable, and spacious. I would like there to be settings in between here. This is something which people reported a long time ago. It would be nice to have sliders for these. Things you do have sliders for, though, is the gaps around windows. So if we go and increase this, it makes the gap bigger and bigger. The annoying thing about this is I can't click and just type a number. So if you set the number really high, you have to go and manually click back through to set it to be what it was. These should be text boxes and should just accept a number. I don't know why it doesn't. You can set your font, you can set icon stuff as well. You can apply it to GNOME apps. It can be a little bit finicky. There may come a time sometime down the line where you could apply the icon theme and all of your general color theming stuff to KDE apps as well. KDE apps are a lot more complicated because there's like 6 different ways to theme apps, whereas on GNOME, it's just kind of hack-libid waiter to make it work nicely. So it's more obnoxious to do, but there's less things to worry about. One thing I will say about the color screen regarding bugs is this button right here is a color selector. There is no indication it is a color selector once you've selected a color. It just shows, oh, you've clicked on the color. So that is annoying. Also, if you have the color set, there is no confirmation. So to actually go and use the color, I have to click this and then click enter. It's very awkward. There should be a button. Yeah. Under display settings, we have all of the general display stuff. Obviously, I already showed you the whole thing with the text overflowing the boxes with long monitor names, but you have your general monitor settings you would expect to see here as well, and they actually finally fixed the issue where this bit of text was a random different font size for some reason. Don't know why it was like that, but yeah, you can drag monitors around and change settings. It's not the most insane settings screen you'll ever see, but it's a settings screen nonetheless. Whilst they had said there would be HDR support in the initial stable release, firstly, I don't have an HDR monitor. Secondly, I can't find any confirmation they actually have added HDR support. That is something that they are working on, or if it is done, is here, but I don't have HDR to actually test that. So if it's not here, it'll be here soon. If it is here, then it doesn't show the setting if you don't have an HDR screen, which makes sense. Also, don't question my monitor layout. That's for a separate video. Yeah. We have our basic sound settings here. Nothing too crazy. You have your device profile stuff. Again, nothing crazy. If you have any wireless devices that have batteries, the battery settings will be here, along with the battery stuff for your actual device. Make sure you do have the System 76 power or power profiles daemon installed to make use of that. I don't, so I don't have that. Input devices is where you're going to find, obviously, the mouse settings, and the keyboard settings is where you find all of your shortcut settings. Basically, every single shortcut in Cosmic can be rebound, so if you don't like any of them, change them to something you do like, and yeah. For some reason, this also kind of seems like a bug. Any of the bindings that have a letter use the lowercase version of the letter, whereas everything else is uppercase. I believe it previously was uppercase, but they changed it to lowercase, so I'm not too sure why they've done that. Much like KDE, you also have your X11 application compatibility thing, which allows for X11 applications to go and listen in on your keyboard, and you can go and set a preferred screen for playing your X11 games on, which is also very nice to see. You have your startup applications. Ignore this here. This is a KDE thing, which for some reason is being loaded by Cosmic, probably because they're checking the same location. And you have your default applications you can set here as well. Time and language, again, nothing too crazy here, and you have your systems and account settings. One thing I just want to briefly say about the theming stuff is themes are not going away. Regardless of what some developers might think in some environments, themes on the Linux desktop are not going away, and the more you fight them, the stronger they're going to get. So, enjoy that. And whilst I'm back on this page, I do want to mention the bar. So the bar is very customizable. There is a panel and a dock. These are the same thing. They might be different things in different environments, but in Cosmic, they are the same thing. So, basically it just means bar 1 and bar 2. I only have bar 1 enabled, and that's how I prefer it. But if you want to run a double bar system, and you want to have maybe your time in the top bar, and then the bottom bar be like icons, stuff like that, that can all be done. Or you can do something else, and basically any combination of things you want. Just because they're called panel and dock doesn't mean that you have to use them in a certain way, even though there is this description of what it does. Under the hood, they are literally the exact same thing. So, that is nice. And in here, with the panel applet settings, you can go and add in applets, and you can load in a custom applets. This is not something where it gives you any indication on how to actually do so, though. So, you kind of got to look at how other people are doing it with custom applets to work out how you actually do it. And this is kind of a big problem that Cosmic has right now in a lot of ways. So all of these settings for Cosmic, I can actually show you this. If we go into .config / I believe it's the Cosmic folder. Yes. So there is this big hierarchy of configuration files, all named after the thing they are setting, and also all versioned. So all of these have the settings for things that you might want to be using. The issue is, right now, there is not documentation on how any of this works. So this is really easy to go and back up in Git, back up with whatever your backup system is, and go and modify by hand, but there's no documentation on what any of these files actually accept as values, what any of these, what any of the file names are going to be if they're not automatically generated. So that's something where I do hope Cosmic, like, irons that out. And I was told there would be documentation by the stable release. That's not yet a thing, so hopefully sometime down the line, because if you have documentation that is, you know, the equivalent to something, let's take, for example, I don't know, the Hyperland Wiki, right? Where everything that you want to set is documented. The level of documentation equivalent to a window manager, to a compositor, that would be very, very nice. Or take Awesome WM or i3WM, whatever you want. If Cosmic has that level of documentation available for their text-based settings, that would put it far and above every single other desktop environment. Because KDE, you can do a lot of this stuff, and GNOME, you can do a lot of this stuff, but the documentation is so spread out, and trying to find it is a big mess. I really do hope they take inspiration from what a lot of window managers are doing and make it so you can actually go and modify these files. Because it was talked about early on that these files would be something that you could go and modify, and you could go and, like, add in 3 or 4 bars if you really wanted to. It's just none of that is actually explained right now how to do it. The closest thing we have to any sort of documentation on that front is basically like the marketing material on how to do theming, which is better than nothing, but it's certainly not something, you know, it's not what I would like to see, right? I, again, would like to see something equivalent to what we have from things like Hyperland. Also, while we're here, there is a theme website, so if you want to go and download custom themes, basically all of the standard themes are already available. Now, bugs. So, you might have noticed windows popping up and down constantly. So, there is a setting in Cosmic, I believe it is under the desktop window management. Yes. Focus follows cursor delay in milliseconds equals 0. So this setting on KDE works correctly. What it does is when you move the cursor over a window, it sets that window to be in focus, but there is another setting where it only raises the window upon clicking it. On Cosmic, it doesn't have that distinction. So if you've got this setting on and do focus follows cursor, if you go and move the cursor to a window, it immediately pops up and down, making this setting literally unusable and completely broken. There is currently a patch being worked on for this. This is something, again, I reported about a year ago. There was some debate about whether or not they want to fix and all this stuff. Somebody has a patch and is trying to get it fixed, which is nice. But yeah, it's still something where effectively this setting does not work. And I would not recommend using it. Basically, if you want to go and focus a window, having it be so you click on a window is the only way to not make it insanely disorientating. Now, regarding the whole thing with panels, so this is actually kind of a fun one. This is a one-way file manager. What I mean by that is if I take this and just drag it out of the window, it tries to copy it to my desktop because this is being treated like a file manager and it's trying to copy the files from this window into the folder on the desktop, which is also a file manager. Now, you might notice that things are not, like, disappearing from down here because it's not actually changing it. It's just visually changing it. Again, this is something else I reported about a year or so ago. I assume this is, like, a one toggle thing to fix, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to accidentally run into this problem and are like, why is it trying to, like, copy a file that's obviously broken? I briefly mentioned this one. There's the whole real awkward animations going in and out of tiling mode. Just get rid of any animation in these modes. Hide the windows before they're at the correct size. Do something because this looks horribly buggy. This is less of a bug and more of a thing that I would request to see. There is this about page and it has some settings here, but you can't actually go. Firstly, it doesn't show the version of Cosmic you're running. Secondly, you can't copy the text from this page. You can't go and highlight it. You can't do anything with it. You can take a screenshot, obviously, but being able to take, like, you know, copy this, put it into a format that is useful for a bug report would be very nice. I think overall, Cosmic in its current state is a solid desktop environment, but it is a stable 1 release, right? And version 1 of anything is effectively beta 2. That's how any first release is going to go, because now you have actual wide adoption of the environment, more people are trying it, more bugs are going to be found, and it's usually the second release onwards where things actually start getting good. In its current state, I wouldn't recommend Cosmic over something like KDE, for example, unless you really, really want a tailing desktop environment. If you just want to try it out, give it a shot. I think everybody should go and form their own opinion on the environment. Go grab Popware, stick in a VM, or grab Fedora Cosmic, or stick in Arch, or whatever you want to use. Give it a shot. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But I think right now it's going in a mostly positive direction, and there have been a couple of issues here and there which have been tough to get resolved. But for the most part, I think they are listening to what people want and designing environment for users, not just for themselves. But let me know your thoughts down below. I'm probably going to do another Cosmic stream at some point. I've just had things going on the weekend, so it'll happen eventually. Yeah, if you like the video, go like the video. Let me know your thoughts on Cosmic down below. Give it a shot, all that good stuff. Go subscribe as well if you want to go subscribe. That would be awesome. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribes Daily Bearer Pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and space is fake.